The wagon creaked and groaned as it rolled across the dry earth, each wheel turning like a clock counting down the moments until Clara's life would change forever, the weight of her family's choices pressing against her chest as she sat inside with her hands clutching the fabric of her plain dress, her knuckles pale from the force of her grip, her thoughts drifting back to the moment her father had told her that she, not her elder sister, would be the one sent as a bride to a man she had never met, a widowed cowboy in the far west who had agreed to take a wife in exchange for helping their struggling family with debts that had grown heavier than any crop yield could fix. And Clara had not argued, though her heart had screamed. For she had always been the daughter who obeyed, the one who bent like the reed in the wind, while her sister, prettier and sharper in tongue, had protested until their father's patience broke. And in that breaking, Clara had been chosen, sacrificed, or perhaps destined, she did not know which, to travel this lonely road into a future that felt more like a sentence than a blessing. But as the horizon spread wide and endless before her, painted in the golden hues of a dying sun, she whispered a prayer beneath her breath, asking God for courage, for strength, for some sign that her life was not simply being bartered away like cattle at market. The homestead came into view slowly. First the outline of a weathered cabin standing proud against the rolling fields, then the smoke rising gently from its chimney, then the figures, one tall, broad-shouldered man with arms folded across his chest, and beside him a little girl with braids, bouncing against her shoulders as she shifted with excitement. And it was in that sight that Clara's heart tightened, for she had not been told he had a child. Yet there she was, staring with wide, curious eyes. And when the wagon came to a stop and Clara stepped down, clutching the worn handle for balance, the earth steady yet strange beneath her boots, the cowboy's gaze locked on her with confusion and something darker, a brewing storm of anger at being deceived, at receiving not the woman promised but another, though his lips remained pressed tight, holding words back behind clenched teeth. But before he could speak, before his voice could thunder in rejection, the little girl stepped forward, her small hands gripping the strap of the cloth bag she carried, her eyes never leaving Clara's face. And then with a clarity that seemed too pure for a child, she declared, "God sent you after all." And the air shifted, heavy with something unseen. For the man flinched as though struck, his jaw loosening, his sternness shaken by the conviction in his daughter's voice. And Clara, whose heart had been a stone of dread, felt the first crack as warmth spread through her, fragile but undeniable. And in that moment her path no longer seemed bound by duty alone, but touched by something divine. Though the man, Jacob, could not accept it so easily, his eyes narrowing as he tried to piece together the truth of the switch, his voice low and rough as he demanded to know why she had been sent, why the promise had been broken. And Clara's throat tightened as she tried to explain, words stumbling like frightened horses, until the girl slipped her small hand into Clara's and said simply, "You're the one we needed." And the cowboy's shoulders sagged with a weariness that seemed older than his years, a burden carried too, long by a man who had buried love once already and vowed never to be deceived again. And though he tried to harden himself, the sight of his daughter's trust, her joy at the stranger, planted doubt in his resolve, for he knew his child's spirit was pure and often spoke truths, even he could not deny. And so the night settled heavy upon them as Clara was invited, reluctantly, into the cabin, the scent of wood smoke and stew wrapping around her like a fragile welcome, her eyes tracing the rough-hewn furniture, the patched curtains, the small touches of a life once lived with love, but now held together by memory and a child's laughter. And as she sat at the table, the silence thick between her and Jacob, she could feel the unspoken accusations burning in the air, yet she also felt the girl's eyes upon her, watching, hopeful as if waiting for a miracle to unfold. And Clara knew in that instant that whatever bitterness lay ahead, whatever obstacles would rise from deceit and broken trust, there was something greater at work, something that had placed her in this exact place at this exact time. And though her sister's absence was a shadow that threatened to consume the light, Clara straightened her back, met Jacob's gaze, and said softly, "I may not be the one you expected, but I promise you I will not fail the chance given to me." And while his lips pressed into a hard line, he did not push her away. And that was enough for the first night, enough for the beginning of a story that would test their souls and hearts like the unforgiving land itself. And as Clara lay awake later, staring at the wooden beams above her, Listening to the gentle breaths of the child who had insisted God had sent her, she realized that for the first time since her journey began, she felt not abandoned, not forsaken, but chosen, and that ember of hope would carry her through the storms yet to come, storms that would test loyalty, reveal secrets, and demand sacrifices greater than she had ever imagined. But for now she clung to the words of a little girl's faith, words that would echo again and again. God sent you after all, and as you ride with Clara into this tale of love, loss and destiny written in the dust of the Old West, don't forget to stay with us, subscribe to the channel, and walk every step of this powerful journey that proves faith and love can turn even the harshest fate into a blessing.